Today's episode of the GoldCast is sponsored by winning. Do you like to win? We do too. Do you like the sweet smell of victory? So do we. Do you like raising your hand in victory, in success, while your opponents falls in failure and loss? So do we. So if you like victory, then welcome to this week's edition of the GoldCast. Now, before we get started, though, Raymond, why don't you let them know where on earth can they find us?
You can like us on Facebook.com/The GoldCast, and you can also subscribe to us via iTunes, YouTube, and Stitcher, all under the same moniker of The GoldCast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And if you're on YouTube, be sure to click the little bell so you get notified. Otherwise, you won't get notified when we go live unless you click the little bell.
Right. In what has been an increasingly rare occurrence, Raymond, we have a happy 49ers win to talk about today. After that, we're going to get into some thoughts about the draft, especially after seeing tonight's, right? Finally. Especially after tonight's game between the Rams and the Bears, which was a great game to watch. We're going to have some talks. We're going to talk about that. And, of course, we're going to get into our final rounds of the playoff predicts. But before we begin that, let's have another celebration by going with our beautiful GoldCast intro. Let's get busy.
San Francisco, are you ready? This is the GoldCast.
Boom! Welcome to another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis the first, baby.
Boom! Boom, 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 boom. Yes, Raymond. Oh, finally. Thank heavens, thank the football gods, the 49er faithful.
My God, we have something to smile about today that is 49er related.
Finally, something to smile about. Yes, finally, something to smile about. The 49ers have won a game against a frisky, albeit not the greatest Denver team, but a frisky Denver team that was coming in on a 3-game win streak. They were 6-6. They lost their center, lost their starting wide receiver, had a couple holes, and the 49ers were able to take advantage and really make a go of it. And here we go. 49ers win 20-6. And I'll tell you what, this is an interesting game. We actually have a live report from Levi Stadium today. So, our father, the unofficial third member of the GoldCast, Rudy Solis Jr., was at the game today with Mama Solis Jr. They were at the game. And when they were watching the game, my dad said, the ratio of Denver to San Francisco fan was about 40%. It was 60-40 in favor of the Niners, but 40% was actually Denver fans. He said Denver was on defense, and they were chanting defense chants. He said at first he was really disappointed. He was really frustrated with the San Francisco faithful. He just expected more out of them. And then he said everything started to go down as the Niners began to come back, to not come back, but to make that big run and they did in the first half and then hold on through the fourth quarter. It got quieter and quieter, and the 49er faithful got louder and louder and louder, and then it ended, and he said it felt like a 49er stadium again, but that when he first got there was orange everywhere, and he said the ratio was almost half. He said 60-40, and he was real upset during these defense chants. He thought, where is the 49er faithful? But lo and behold, they held strong, and they came back, and the 49er faithful, cheered this team on to victory. And I was just so happy to see this team hold on. So, Raymond, why don't you tell me, you're the greatest analyst in the game. Tell me what you saw on what was a great Sunday to be a 49er fan.
Well, the first thing that really stood out to me was the fact that the defense held on to actually close out a game and didn't give it up, because in the first half, Denver didn't have an answer for our offense, in particular George Kittle. And in the second half, that became a big fat zero. Couldn't run the ball, couldn't pass the ball. So the onus was really on the defense to really hold Denver for the next 2 quarters and keep the game out of reach, which they did successfully. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that we were actually getting pressure. While it didn't necessarily amount into a whole lot of sacks, we only had 2 sacks. DJ Reed, who had an outstanding game, he led the team in tackles, total tackles and assists. He had 10. The next closest person, which was Richard Sherman, with 5. But he had a sack and 3 TFLs, tackles for losses. And that's huge. So Marcel Harris, he's another, younger guy that's been brought up, from just to fill in the void of our long list of injuries. And he chipped in too. He had 5 tackles. He had 2 TFLs. Ronald Blair made his name known again. He had a tackle and a TFL. So, that adds up. That means that's like 6 TFLs. That means that the running game could never get established on Denver's side of the ball. And with Case Keenum, who's a decent quarterback, he's a serviceable quarterback, but this is a guy undrafted, just like Nick Mullins, who has worked his way up, played really well for Minnesota last year, and then found himself with an $18 million a year contract in Denver. But without a running game and with enough pressure to disrupt his timing, we were really able to keep this offense at bay. And this is not the greatest offense in the world, but we've actually faced offenses that are statistically worse and have allowed them to beat us. So the fact that we held on here, I think, says a lot about the defense's ability to just kind of stick in there and keep it together. So, and that's great. I think losing Foster certainly does suck, but I feel like they've definitely got someone in Fred Warner who leads the team in tackles this year, which is amazing. He also leads the team in pass deflections as a middle linebacker. So he's got great speed, great coverage speed. He's got a nose for the football and against the run. So this is a guy that can really become a premier inside linebacker, and he also doesn't play as reckless as Foster too. His technique is more sound and polished. He's not to say that Foster's recklessness was a total loss on his end, but Fred Warner wraps around offensive players, and when he gets a guy, there's a good chance he's going to bring him down because of the way he wraps players, and his tackling technique is very good. So defensively, I thought it was great, and it wasn't. Coverage was great at times. Coverage is also not great at times, but when the front 7 is able to do their job, then you're going to have a lot of pass disruptions, pass deflections, and then sacks and hurries and stuff like that. So once we get an edge rusher to complement DeForest Buckner, who's most likely going to go to the Pro Bowl, he has 9 sacks. He didn't have a sack today, but he did play well. And once he crosses the 10 mark, which I believe he will within the next 3 games, he's going to get at least 1 to 2 more sacks. As an interior lineman with no help on that line, I think it's pretty telling as far as what his talent level is. The fact that he can do that on this type of front 7, I think that says a lot about him. So once we get a complimentary edge rusher, I think that'll help out Solomon Thomas. That'll help out Eric Armstead, who's been healthy all year for the first time in his pro career, which is great because that's what he needed. That's what's been holding him back this whole time. So the fact that he's been able to stay in there, although he doesn't quite have the numbers that DeForest Buckner does, he's still a threat in there. And if he can polish his, having a whole season under his belt of health is going to be huge for him going into next year. And overall, I think this was a great effort, a great defensive effort. That's what stuck out to me. That and George Kittle. George Kittle was a one-man show on offense. He's definitely going to the Pro Bowl. So I think we're going to end the year with at least 2 Pro Bowl selections in George Kittle and DeForest Buckner. So that'll be nice to have representation on both sides of the football. But that's what I saw. I'm not sure what the game looked like on your end, but that's my take.
Oh, man. George Kittle is so good. He is so good at football.
He's ridiculous.
He's a beast. Ridiculous. 100%. He's so good at football. Oh, my God, he's so fast. He's so fast for a tight end. He's very hard to keep down, and he just bulldozes his way through those defenses. He is so exciting to watch. He's got speed similar to that of a wide receiver. But his running after the catch, what it kind of reminds me of a little bit. I haven't seen a tight end who's done it like this in a 49er uniform in a long time, but he kind of reminds me. He got a little bit of that Brent Jones. He's a lot faster than Brent Jones, but he has that Brent Jones. Like, Brent Jones was hard to tackle. He was a beast. Like, he was just hard to take down. And when he had that ball and he just went, you just couldn't rap against him. He just bulldozed his way through defenses. And Kittle has that. Kittle is like a faster Brent Jones, which I think is a terrifying description of a player. Like, oh, think of Brent Jones if he was even faster.
Right. Who was a 4-time Pro Bowler in his heyday too. So that's pretty telling.
Yeah, he was also up for the Hall of Fame this year, but didn't get past the second round, which is okay. We're going to get him in there the next round. We're going to get him in there because Brent Jones deserves to be in the Hall.
Yeah, that would be awesome if he could get into the Hall.
Hell yeah. So Kittle is incredible. Fred Warner definitely has made his impact felt 100%. I love Buckner, and I agree. The defense was really able to put pressure on. So let me ask you this, Ray. Here's a question. Did Reuben Foster going down, did that open the door? You know, sometimes you're always an injury or two away from being a really good team. Did Reuben Foster force this defense to get more creative?
I don't know if it forced them to get more creative so much as it forced them to really step up their game. I mean, Fred Warner was already on pace to do what he's been doing. You know, he's got 92 total tackles on the year. That's 46 more than the next best player on defense, which, by the way, is DeForest Buckner. So that's saying quite a bit about Fred Warner's presence on the football field, against the run, against the pass. Like I said, you know, he doesn't have any sacks, but he's got 3 TFLs on the year. He's got 6 pass deflections on the year. The next closest person is Antone Exum Jr. with 5. And then I think Akella Witherspoon and Richard Sherman each have 4 apiece. But Richard Sherman's is a little bit different because people aren't throwing to him. So they don't throw to him because his coverage is so damn good. And that's why he doesn't have as many as you would think a player of his caliber. But people just aren't challenging him because he just shuts down that side of the field. Most of the time he's there. So, and I think when he makes the transition to safety, I think that'll really solidify the third level of the secondary. It certainly helps to have him there at the second level, especially in man coverage. He does it so well. But when he makes the transition to safety, which I think is coming, it might come as soon as next year. He might do one more year at corner and then move to safety, though. If I had to put money on it, I would say perhaps he goes one more year at corner and then moves to safety next year. But that's something that he knows he's open to as far as extending his career because he wants to play 5 more seasons. So the only way that that's going to happen realistically, you know, for him to be like an actual viable to have a viable presence on the field, I think he's going to have to move to safety, which I think will be good for him. I think, in fact, he'll go to the Pro Bowl again if he does that. But yeah, I don't necessarily think they're getting more credit. It seems like they're doing the exact same thing. They just happen to play better, and perhaps they're also at a time of the year they're out of the playoffs. They know they're out of the playoffs, so there's that pressure is gone. Now they're just kind of playing with the pressure of just like we just got to play. And we're playing spoiler now. So it's a pressureless game for them, which is a different mindset, obviously. But you're actually trying to put pressure on the other opponent, and that's actually kind of fun, especially for defenses. You know, because you're trying to stop them from getting into a tournament that you're no longer eligible for.
Yeah. Well, I love the idea of Richard Sherman at safety. I wish it would happen next year. I just love he's already, can I just say this? Words I never thought I would say in my entire life. I fucking love Richard Sherman. He's so good.
He is really good. It's different seeing him
really good
wearing our uniform playing week in and week out. I'm like, dang, he is really good. Before I didn't used to give him the same amount of credit. So I was like, man, this guy just got a big mouth, and he's in the right he's in the right place in the right time. But that's just jealous fan talk for the most part. But now that I actually get to see him play every single week, you realize how good he actually is. He'll make a great cornerbacks coach.
He's really good
if he ever decides to do that.
Yeah, he's really good, man. He is really good. He's so impressive to watch. And after such a devastating injury, an injury that is, I mean, God, to me, it's worse than an ACL tear. He has really, because it's just really hard to come back from, he has really found his form again. I love Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman, I love you. I just wanted to let you know that. I love you. You've done a great job for us. I never thought I would say that. I never thought I'd ever be sitting here on the GoldCast talking about how good Richard Sherman looks in a red and gold uniform. But he does, and this is great. This, by the way, the classic just red jersey with the gold pants. We're getting way off subject here. But I said this several times when I was watching the game today. I was like, this is my all-time favorite. They have the stripe down the leg. I actually prefer not the stripe. I like it even really stripped down like the way it was in the 80s, like just super simple. But, they kind of like to jazz everything up nowadays. But he looks really good in that red and gold uniform, and that's my favorite 49er uniform is the one they wore today. That, of course, the classic, just the red jersey with the gold pants.
Well, the stripe in the 80s, I like the stripe.
I like the stripe. Sometimes they didn't have the stripe. I don't know. I couldn't tell you what years, but I've seen games where they didn't have the stripe. And I like the stripe. The stripe is cool. I got no issue with it, but I like even the stripped down of just the simplicity of the old school one. But I do. And Richard Sherman, going back to it, Richard Sherman looks really good in a 49er jersey, and I never thought I would say it, but he's really good at football. I would love for him to make that transition. He already is such a leader. The idea of him being at free safety, just commanding the entire defense from that position, overseeing everything. God, I just can't think of a better place for Richard Sherman. I know this conversation's already begun. I really would like to see that transition happen next year. But the defense really stepped it up. I mean, how many more clips of Robert Saleh were they going to show today? Every other clip was him clapping and high-fiving the team. I was like, man, this is the most clips I've ever seen of Robert Saleh during a game.
He's got to feel pretty happy on him. I know that there's
well, he's playing for his job. Who are we kidding?
Exactly. There's pressure. He's got pressure for sure. So I know he feels it. So to have a game, and technically, I mean, statistically, they are better. They just haven't gotten better in the scoring category. This defense still is 27th in the league in points allowed from opponents. So while they've gotten statistically better on the run and the pass and the total yards, they're now middle of the road. They're more than middle of the road. So middle of the road would be like 15th. They're past that. They're 11th, 12th, and 13th in those categories. So they have improved. That's it's hard to fire a guy when you've made cases like that. But if you continue to be shitty in a category that is most detrimental, meaning the opponent's scoring ability, then I think the pressure's still on for your job. So he knows that, and to have a game like today is certainly helpful. If they can get a miraculous win against Seattle next week, I think that'll definitely solidify him staying on another year. But if we get blown out from here on out, I think that'll certainly it's not going to end the conversation of is Robert Saleh the right man talk. That's going to get louder.
Well, let's talk about that just a little bit here. So we had the garbage bowls, and we disappointingly, I really thought we were going to win. No exaggeration. I thought we were going to win.
Just a disaster of a run.
It was a disaster of a run. I thought we were going to win 4 in a row. I thought we were going to beat Arizona, Raiders, New York, and Tampa. And I thought we were going to take all those games. And then instead, we get dismantled by everybody but the Raiders and beat the Raiders with the third-string quarterback. Didn't make any sense. Now, here we go, going into we are the Blood Bowls. The first game was a bludgeoning. It was the bloodiest of the Blood Bowls the bloodiest the Blood Bowls could possibly be. And then today we beat Denver in a surprising and dominating fashion, and now we have 3 more Blood Bowls. We've got Seattle, home for Seattle, home for Chicago, and then at Los Angeles. I don't know if I'm going to that game this year because I don't want to be in that stadium for my last game of the year with Louis if this damn team loses. But I don't know. I'm saying is we had a horrible garbage bowls. It would be great to end the blood bowls with some dignity. That's all. That's all I'm hoping for. That's all I'm hoping. We just end them with some dignity. We're gonna look ahead to the game with Seattle next week in a little bit. But first, let's move on, Raymond. I have some thoughts for you. We had some questions, but now I've got some thoughts. Tonight, we're recording this on Sunday, December 9th. Tonight was a huge game. LA Rams on the road against Chicago Bears. The Bears. This was one of the number one offenses going against the number one baddest defense on the planet, managed by, God, it's like watching an ex. It's like seeing an ex do so well somewhere else. Like she's got a new man. She loves this guy. She's crazy about this guy. She hangs out with this guy. It's the worst feeling. And that's what it feels like when I see Vic Fangio with his new toy, Khalil Mack, over there in Chicago doing their thing. I get really sad because I miss Vic Fangio and I miss him being here, and I wish he was here because when I see him over there having so much fun and winning games, it just hurts me. But the Rams and the Bears tonight was a huge test of the Bears and where are they in terms of this league, this new league with the new rules in terms of, really not being able to put a lot of pressure on quarterbacks, but they have. Can defenses still win games in the modern NFL?
They are elite. That's what I saw. They're elite. Not just any defense. That's an elite defense.
That is elite. I am, Raymond, exactly. I am happy to report that this team is elite. That defense dismantled the Los Angeles Rams. Defenses still win games in 2018, and if you can put together a defense like that, remember we had the conversation, Raymond, we had the conversation about the draft 2 weeks ago. I'm going to link it right now. If you're on YouTube, listening to this on YouTube, you'll be able to see this one. This was 2 weeks ago, week 12.
I don't think Chicago would be in their position today had they not traded for Khalil Mack.
Agreed, 100%. 100%. He was the game changer.
It wouldn't be 8-4. It wouldn't be 8-4, not even close.
No. And you know what? Going back to what you talked about last 2 weeks ago when we were just having this discussion, if you're the GM of the 49ers right now and you have an opportunity to get the Saquon Barkley of next year or the Alvin Kamara of next year for Kyle Shanahan, or you have an opportunity to get the Khalil Mack of next year for Robert Saleh, I still think you gotta. I think you're right. I think you gotta go Khalil Mack. I really think you do, especially with where offenses are this in this era, this year, and where they're going to be for the next who knows how many years. You have to get the Khalil Macks of the world. How do you feel? Are you more convinced now? You're the GM. You're on the clock.
Well, you see what happens when you have an elite pass rusher. He's a total game changer. An elite pass rusher changes everything because that type of player helps every level. He helps the rest of the front seven look good. He helps the second level linebackers look good. He helps the third level secondary look good because you disrupt the chiming of the quarterback. What happened? What happened to all that pressure with Jared Goff? It led to 4 picks? I think he had 4 picks on the day. That's what that leads to. It always starts at the line of scrimmage. So if you find someone who's elite that can play at that level, then it's a trickle down effect. It just makes everyone else on that defense play better. I mean, they got to be good too, and they have to have a semblance of talent as well. But it makes their job so much more easier. Just like how Jimmy Garoppolo impacts the offense the way he does. He makes everyone better because of how important that position is. That edge rusher is so important. That's what made Justin Smith who Justin Smith was. That's what helped. I mean, Patrick Willis was already elite before we got an Aldon Smith, but him and Bowman, it just made them better. I mean, they were already they're Pro Bowlers, and our secondary had like 2 or 3 Pro Bowlers in that first year in 2011. I mean, that was all because we had a terrific pass rush. Without that, it's really hard to do. Really, really hard to do. So if even after, knowing what Barkley's about, and Barkley's, he's the next the current generation of the Todd Gurley's and the Alvin Kamaras. He's that dual threat halfback. But even if I had him staring at me in the face and I knew he was going to become that good, I would still get an elite edge rusher, because those guys, those halfbacks, will not perform as well against elite defenses like Chicago. It just doesn't happen. And in the playoffs, when we're just left with the best defenses and the best offensives, those offenses are not going to be putting up 40, 50 points. So they might get away with it maybe one game, but they're not going to be doing it week in and week out. And it's already starting to happen. You're seeing New Orleans putting up less points. Kansas City barely got by this week. So we're seeing that. We're seeing defenses catch up, and the really good ones are gonna take these guys to school almost every time, just because of that front seven. You stop the run, you stop a team from doing what they're supposed to do. You make them a one-trick pony. And Jared Goff can't carry a team with his arm, because Todd Gurley's the one who carries that team offensively. So pass rush.
It's true. It's true. Very similar to like the what Ezekiel Elliott is to Dak Prescott and the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, so it was very it reminded me of the conversation we had a couple weeks ago, and very much you do have to go Khalil Mack. I mean, that is the piece. It reminds me of the Smith brothers. Man, I miss the Smith brothers. Watching Chicago's defense, it reminds me. I was getting Harbaugh flashbacks. I go, God, I remember that team. That defense was one of my all-time favorite 49er defenses ever. Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman, Aldon Smith, Justin Smith. Oh, my God. That team was so ridiculous. Our front seven was so nasty during the Harbaugh era. It was crazy. It was so intimidating. Teams were scared as hell to play us. Those guys were just destruction. They were quarterback nightmares were built on those 49ers, those Harbaugh, Vic Fangio 49er defenses. And watching Fangio over there in Chicago, it brings me flashbacks. It's just our beautiful ex. How far the mighty have fallen. But congratulations to Chicago, and I think it really reinforces what you were talking about during Week 12. We have to get a pass rusher. We have to get a defense. It still matters in today's NFL more than ever. I think it matters in today's NFL because the rules lend themselves to high-powered offenses so much now more than ever. So, and I'm hearing, we're going to talk about, we have plenty of time to talk about this, but I'm hearing this draft is got some great picks at that position. So we shall see. But Raymond, this now reminds me, going into our playoff predicts. Boom, baby, playoff predicts. It's back again. Now, to recap where we were. Raymond, you had the Chiefs, the Pats, the Steelers, and then last week you added the Texans to the post. You also, on the NFC side, you had the Rams, the Saints, the Washington Professional Football Team, and the Chicago Bears. I had the Pats, the AFC side, Pats, Chiefs, Steelers, and the Texans, almost exact same order, except I chose the Pats the first week. Then I had a similar order but inverse. I had the Rams, the Saints, the Bears, the Cowboys. Our big difference being Washington and Dallas. You had chosen Washington. I had chose Dallas. Now, let's pick two wild.
He was playing great before Alex Smith snapped his leg in half.
That was it. Hey, trust me, I would have chosen him too had Alex Smith's leg not gone down in half. I'm with you.
It was before that week. Had that not happened, I think they'd still be great. Now they're 6-7, so that makes a huge difference. So I don't. I think it was a good choice at the time, but that was before, had I known that was gonna happen, I would have picked a different team. But we'll see what big of a difference, the quarterback makes. And Alex Smith, for all his struggles, he's a winning quarterback now. And now he's out of the picture. Washington's probably not going to make the playoffs.
Well, you know what, and actually, sadly enough, Alex Smith's career might be over. That injury was pretty devastating, and it's not looking good right now. So, I hope he's back. I really love Alex Smith, and I'm just bummed that this guy could this extremely rich. Every time I'm like, oh, I feel bad for Alex Smith, I do have to remind myself that this man has negotiated so much money from the 49ers, the Chiefs, and Washington. This guy is a millionaire so many times over. I go, I don't feel too bad for you, Mr. Millionaire Buckaroos. So, but now, Raymond,
I'm pretty sure he's in the $100 million range accumulated. So even though that injury might suck and he might not play again,
he's going to find a way.
Fine.
He will be. Now, Raymond, time for our next round of playoff predicts. Raymond, tell me your first AFC wild card choice. Who's going in?
I'm going to have to put my money on the Colts.
Oh.
And that's because they got Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck is a fighter. He's the best quarterback out of the teams that are in the hunt. Out of all the teams that are in the hunt, he's the best quarterback out of that group. So if I got to lean on someone for one particular attribute, it'd have to be the quarterback, and that quarterback happens to play for the Colts.
The Colts 6-6. We shall see. All right, now who's your wild card for the NFC?
They won today.
They did. Who's your NFC wild card?
Oh gosh, this group. All of these teams have losing records, but again, if I have to go with the team that probably has the best chance because of their quarterback, I don't think it's the Packers. They're 5-7 with a tie, and even though they have Aaron Rodgers, it's going to be pretty tough for them to climb 3 spots. They'd have to win every game from here on out in order to do that, and even then, they would just end with an 8-7 record. So it's between the Panthers and Eagles. Cam's been there. And Wentz, I like Wentz a lot.
Wait, Panthers and Eagles over, and not the Seahawks and Vikings?
Well, for wild card round. Oh, that's right, wild card round. So wild card round, yeah, I'd say Cowboys have the best shot.
Well, but Cowboys have already taken. They're the conference champs of the NFC East right now, so they wouldn't get they already have their division. I'm talking about
but they haven't clinched.
They haven't clinched. Yeah, I mean, I guess you have already put Washington in that spot, so you would have to put Cowboys in your wild card spot.
I mean, they're out. Washington's out, so I got to put on another team. So, maybe Vikings. If Vikings hang on to win tomorrow, I think they got a shot at the wild card. Seahawks are in a wild card position, so it's between Vikings and Seahawks. I'd probably go with Russell Wilson and Seahawks. On the AFC side, I know I like the Colts, but there are teams that are in better positions, but Steelers are really weird where they look so elite one game and then they just put up a stinker the next game, and I just can't figure them out. And I think Chargers are going to do well. They're going to
They lost today.
I know, to Oakland. So that's what I mean. And the Texans, it's hard to. I mean, the Texans I think they're gonna do well. They have a great record, so I think they'll be fine. But I like the Colts more than I like the Ravens. The Chargers will have a higher seeding. So I think if the playoffs started today, it's Ravens, Texans, Chargers, Steelers. And the Colts are technically still in the hunt. And then and on the NFC side, it'd be Bears, Vikings, Seahawks, Cowboys. So I'm definitely taking the Seahawks because I think that's a no-brainer out of those 4 teams. And on the AFC side, I like the Colts more than the Ravens. And Texans are playing good defense right now, and that's what's keeping them into the game. Defense, hello, Texans in Chicago. Though that's their records are a result of them playing sound defense, not the other way around. They play just good enough offense. Their defense probably scores, a percentage of the time too, and that's one of the reasons. But I guess on the AFC side, I mean, Chargers are I think they're a surefire. They're at 10-3. Even if they lost the next 3 games, 10-6.
Yeah, but
they're still in. And KC's already got the top spot, so they couldn't get the bye.
But hold that last wild card spot for next week. Hold that, but you already said the Colts, so just hold by your Colts. I think that's a good choice. You still have your next week is your last wild card spot, so if you think in Chargers, hold that for next week.
We'll stick with Andrew Luck.
Yeah, I think that's a good choice for you. So for me, I am going to go with the LA team that's worth rooting for, the Los Angeles Chargers. I actually said that in our fantasy group that because I knew it would just drive Louis crazy. I said, "Hey, finally an LA team we can all root for, huh?" And Louis was super offended. So I think the LA Chargers are badass. I think they're super good. I really enjoy watching them. Excellent balance of defense and offense. Phillip Rivers is a champ. Phillip Rivers is somebody that I would love to see go to the Super Bowl. That guy should have a ring. I would have killed for Phillip Rivers to have been a 49er quarterback. Killed. We would have won Super Bowls. That guy should have 5 Super Bowls. I'm not even exaggerating. He is that good. He is really good. Maybe not 5. Five's a bit much. That's like Joe Montana, Tom Brady era. But I'm saying he should at least have 1 or 2 Super Bowls. He is so good. I love the Chargers. I love their defense. I love their offense. This team has been on destruct mode most of the season. Just a dominant team. I'm going with the AFC Chargers, the Los Angeles Chargers for the AFC. And for my NFC pick, this is tough. It is a real tight race. It's anybody's guess. And tomorrow's game is really going to determine it's going to have some major wild card implications, and it's a tough pick. But I'm going to say, begrudgingly, frustratingly, annoyingly, I think I have to give it to stupid Seattle Seahawks, the fucking Seattle Seahawks. I don't want to give it to them. You know what I keep hearing, and this drives me nuts. I keep hearing how, oh man, Seattle's a team no one.
They have the best quarterback in that group.
They do. They do have the best quarterback in this group. It's 100%. And the thing I keep hearing is everyone keeps talking about, oh, Seattle, that's like the one team no one wants to face in the playoffs. Really? Is that really a thing? I really don't agree. I think if Seattle has to go on the road anywhere, this is it.
I would want to play.
Exactly. I was saying the same. If I was New Orleans or LA, I am licking my chops at the idea of Seattle having to come to town and play me. I'm like, please, give me Seattle. They always say this every year. It was the same year that they barely beat Minnesota on that fluke missed kick by Minnesota's kicker back in that ice game from like 2014 or 2015. I can't remember which year it was. And everyone's like, oh, Seattle's a team no one wants to see in the playoffs. Really? No one cares about Seattle. It's like not a thing in 2018. They say that every time, and it's like it is like nails on a chalkboard to my ears. Every time I hear it, I'm like, shut up. This is not a thing. But those are my choices. Seattle, unfortunately, is in. Chargers are in. We have one more week of playoff predicts, and then we will be done for this year. So we'll see. We always like to end it a little early to see if we're right, because like it's no fun. By the end, you're just picking teams that are already being told. But this is good. I like it. So moving on, Raymond, to our final section of the evening. It is time to look forward to the next Bloodbath Bowl, Seattle at San Francisco. So Raymond, as always, tell me, what has Vegas decided is the proper line for this game? Who's favored to win, and by how many points? How much does Vegas believe in us after this win today? And Seattle's still in its dominating run for the end of the season here. Tell me, where do you think Vegas put the line?
I'd say 8 points
8 points, not bad.
in favor of Seattle.
In favor of Seattle. I knew that. It's funny. Unfortunately, I read your mind. I knew exactly what you meant there. Luckily, Raymond, you're wrong, but not by much. The Seattle Seahawks, the Seattle Seahawks are favored by 5.5 points. Now the question is, Raymond, do you take that bet?
I think you do, because I don't think this team is good enough to carry the momentum of this win into next week against Seattle. I mean, I could be wrong, and I would love to be wrong. I was wrong about this game, so I'd love to be wrong about next week. But I think you got to take that bet, and I think you got to take the over. I think it's going to be a touchdown, not 5.5. I mean, my original gut instinct was 6 points, but then I went with 8 because I was like, I don't know, 2 field goals doesn't seem. I don't think the game would be that close.
That's a bummer. As I often say on these days when you make that guess, I hope you're wrong. All due respect. I do hope you're wrong, and I hope the 49ers win. So let us see. We shall see. And lastly, what say you guys? What say you after watching all the games this week? If we have the opportunity, do we pick up the Saquon Barkley or the Khalil Mack of next year? I want to know what you think. Let us know in the comments. Pop on over and drop us a message in the comments. YouTube, let us know. Tell us what you think. Do we pick up the Saquon Barkley of next year or the Khalil Mack? Raymond and I say Mack, all dressed in black. So why don't you tell us what you say? All right. Before we leave, Ray, why don't you let them know where can they find you?
The best place is probably Twitter. That's at Ray Solis. RaySolis.
Boom. And then you can find me on Instagram at Rudy Solis 3 and on Twitter at Rudy Solis 3RD. So concludes another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis first, baby.
Boom. We'll see you next time. Same GoldCast time, same GoldCast channel.
This is the GoldCast.